Hello everyone, my name is Landon and welcome back to another video. Today, in honor of Thanksgiving coming up as the next holiday, I'm going to be going over the top 5 books that I am most thankful for. Now when I say that, I mean the books that have basically defined what reading is to me, like what I've loved to read, what I've always gone back to, books that I've really just felt something more than just a love for that book. If you know what I mean, books that just sparked my love for reading, I guess you could say. These are the 5 books that really got me to that point, and books that I always see myself going back to as being these 5 books, they may not be, some of them may not be my favorites, but they're definitely books that I could tell people oh, this was the one that happened, this is why this happened, and this is why that happened, and that's why this happened. So let's get into this. At the number 5 spot we have The Terror by Dan Simmons. This is my favorite novel of all time. That is the pure sole reason why this novel ends up on this list. This is hands down, if I had to recommend any book to anybody, this would probably be either my first, second, maybe even third choice. There might be some later on I might think of, but this is probably in my top 5 if I ever tell anybody to read a book. It's a great historical horror fiction novel that is literally a doorstop. Look at this thing. It's freaking humongous. And Dan Simmons did an amazing job. I also read more of Dan Simmons' work because of this book. I have Drood, Abominable, Summer of Night, and all of the Hyperion series. He's a great writer, and this book really just sparked my love for historical fiction. After reading this book, I was craving to find more historical fiction novels. This novel really just holds a special place in my heart for it being my favorite novel of all time, and really a spark for historical fiction, especially horror historical fiction like Drood, The Abominable, and such like that. At the number 4 spot, we have Cujo. Cujo was the first ever Stephen King novel that I ever read. The thankfulness speaks for itself. If it hadn't been for me walking around one day with my brother in Barnes & Noble and seeing this book, I probably wouldn't have been the Stephen King fan that I am today. But I think I've told you guys this story before on the channel. I'm not sure if I have. But I remember this story really vividly, even though it was so long ago. I went to Barnes & Noble with my 2 brothers. It wasn't just one of my brothers, it was 2 brothers. And I was just browsing the sections, and I saw this book. I saw it, and I was like, oh yeah, I watched this movie 2 nights ago on TV, on Netflix. And I asked my brother if he could get it for me, because I didn't have any money. I was younger at the time. I was 13. And I was like, I'll pay you back when we get home if you buy me this novel. He was like, no, just wait for it, and I'll buy it for you some other time. A few months rolls around, and he gets it for my birthday. And I devoured this book. And I really laid off of Stephen King for a little while after that, a long while, until the next year when the It movie was announced. Or maybe it was 2 years after that, I'm not really sure, but the It movie got announced, and then I bought It, and then after that I bought The Shining and Green Mile, and then after that I bought 11/22/63 because one of my friends saw me reading It and recommended that to me, and then I bought Christine, and then I bought The Girl Love Tom Gordon, and then I bought Insomnia, and all those books. And this book was really the book that sparked the love that I have for Stephen King today. At the number 3 spot, we have When Marnie Was There by Joan G. Robinson. I forgot her name for a second. This is the novel that was adapted into my second favorite movie of all time. That's another reason why this novel the thankfulness speaks for itself. I watched the movie 4 times before I read this novel, before even knowing it was a novel. And every single time I've seen that movie, I have cried. It at least brought me to tears or made me teary-eyed. The first time I was bawling. The second time I was a little more little more control of myself, but I still was on the floor at the end. With my brother and his girlfriend, when we watched it, I was crying too, but I didn't want to embarrass myself. And then when I watched it with my sister, I teared up because I already seen it a ton of times, but I still teared up. And When Marnie Was There, when I read the novel, it's so close to the movie. If you guys have ever seen and read When Marnie Was There, you can really feel how well Studio Ghibli adapted this novel into a movie. And that's why this is at number 3 spot. It holds that place in my heart for being the book that was adapted into my second favorite movie. Not my first favorite movie. My first favorite movie is A Ghost Story, but that was an original screenplay by Oh my God, what's his name? I'm literally, I can see him now. I can see his face. I can't remember his name, but he's a great director. He works with Casey Affleck a lot. Casey Affleck was in a Ghost Story. But yeah, enough talk about Ghost Story. Yeah, this is also sort of a ghost story when Marnie was there. So I really highly recommend the movie and highly recommend the book. The next two are the most important. Like, it blows every other novel that I've named on this list out of the water. At the number 2 spot, we have Cruelty by Edward Lorne. Not Bay's End, not Sound of Broken Ribs, not Life After Dane. Cruelty. The sole reason that it's Cruelty, not Bay's End, my second favorite novel of all time, not Sound of Broken Ribs, which I think I liked more than this, but put this one higher just because of the sentimental factor. Cruelty was the first ever novel that I read by Edward Lorne. I had never read any of his stuff before. I only knew him as a YouTube personality. I just watched his videos, answered just questions that he asked in videos, commented myself on my opinions on what he thought and what I thought. And then one day, I just was on Amazon. I was on Barnes & Noble, and I looked up his name, and this was the first book that came up. So I decided to buy it, came to my house in less than a week, and I realized how big it was, and I knew I'd love it right away. And I started reading the novel, and I was messaging him on Instagram how much I loved it. I was like, you did such a good job with the characters. The story is crazy. The monster is terrifying. It's nightmare fuel. And this was the book that sparked one of the best friendships I've had in the past few months. Edward Lorne is one of those people that you can just sit down and talk to, and he'll listen. He doesn't judge you. He doesn't, put you down for whatever you say. He deals with sometimes what he thinks is shitty opinions. He doesn't care. Because he loves listening to what people have to say, and that's the beauty of the man. And if it wasn't for this book, I wouldn't have had that friendship that I've cherished for so many months. I think it's coming on a year now. It has to be. Because I started reading Stephen King back in September, and I found him around then, when I was trying to find Stephen King books to read. I think I looked up a video online, the top 5 best Stephen King books, or the top 5 worst Stephen King books, and he was the first one that came up. I watched it, and I looked at the novels that he put up there, and I read them, because I hadn't read them. And then I started commenting on his videos, I bought the book, and then it sparked the beautiful relationship that I have with him now. And it's definitely at the number 2 spot for the friendship that I have grown with that wonderful man. And Edward Lorne, I know you're probably going to be watching this. Wish the best for you, man. Wish the best for your family. Everything that's been going on in your life, I'm not going to get into that, but you mean a lot to me, man. You're one of my best friends right now, and you're someone that I can really sit down and talk to, or not sit down in a Twitter room or an Instagram DM, that kind of sit down. I can just talk to you and just let myself out and just be like, I just want somebody to talk to. But yeah, thanks for being there for me. And that is the number 2 spot. And at the number 1 spot, it is the book that has made me look like a madman ever since I started my channel. The book that most people have come to hate. The book that most people never recommend. Not me, though. Dreamcatcher by Stephen King. This novel, I'm going to sound like a madman right now to many of you, but I've read this book 4 times. I've read The Girl Left on Gordon 3 times, and that book is 700 pages shorter than this one. I've read this book 4 times. First time I read it, it was one of my favorites of all time. I put it at the number 3 spot on my Stephen King list. Then I read it a second time, it still remained there. I thought it belonged there. Then I read it a third time this summer, and I bumped it up to the number 2 spot. It was behind Salem's Lot. I moved Salem's Lot down 1, and then I moved it up again. I moved it up to the number 2 spot. And then a few weeks back, it was coming to winter, and I was like, I need a book to read that's in the winter. I didn't want to read The Terror, that was way too long, and I didn't really feel like reading a book like Blaze. And I was like, you know what, let's just go with Old Reliable. I picked up Dreamcatcher. I read that book in 4 days. I read this novel in 4 days. For the 4th time, I read this book. I read it in 4 days. And that was when I bumped it up to the number 1 spot, tying with The Girl Left on Gordon. I don't care what any of you guys think. You guys can talk shit about this book. You guys can trash it for what it is, because I know a lot of you do. I know a lot of you guys hate this book, especially Edward Lorne. But this is the novel that really sparked my love for reading. I read this novel, maybe it was in the middle of my Stephen King read-through. I had all these books up here before I read this book. I had at least like 15 to 20 of his novels. And then I came around to this one, and I was like, man, like, writers are really fucking good at what they do. And then I just put it down, and I loved it, and then I've just loved it ever since. This is the book that really sparked my love for reading. I didn't have these shelves before I read Dreamcatcher. I had this top row and like a couple more at the bottom, including Dreamcatcher. And then it sparked into what you guys see behind me now. Go back to one of the first videos that I ever did on my channel and look at me then. I had this shelf, and it wasn't filled. And now I have this entire shelf filled, and I'm overflowing. You can see right here. Dreamcatcher was the novel that, whenever I pick it up, not even to read it, if I just hold it like this, just hold it close to me, it's the novel that I can just think that there's still good writing out there. There's still like that spark that I know that people can have. It's just, it holds the most special place in my heart. I have 3 copies of this book. I have this copy. I'm just going to whip them out for you right now. Let's see. This copy means the most to me, right here. This Dreamcatcher, I'll put them up here. This Dreamcatcher was given to me by my mother's friend who had a grandma who loved to read Stephen King. She had a bunch of Stephen King novels, or not a bunch, I've only gotten like 2 from her, Black House and this Dreamcatcher. And she messaged my mom one day, and she was like, oh, does Landon have this one yet? And she was like, oh, yeah, he does. And I was like, okay, no, I'm going to get that book because I love it so much. And then I got it for her for free. She gave it to me as like a little gift. And then I got this one a couple weeks back. This was the one that I read for the 4th time. This is the UK, the United Kingdom, hardcover first edition of their Dreamcatcher. It's my favorite cover, probably of all time, with the cabin and the sunlight in the background. And even though there's a lot of pain in this book, even though there's a lot of people who are dying, there's a lot of terrible visions, there's a lot of terrible scenes, a lot of things that you really don't want in your head, the ending of this book, the epilogue, and the last few sentences, I just think really means something to me. When Jonesy and Henry are walking away from the darkness, that is their shadows behind them, and that's all that there was behind them for that time. And this novel just means so much to me, and I'm thankful that it is the #1 novel in my life. And it's tied for the #1 spot. It's not my favorite novel of all time. Beza and the Terror are just above it. But this one means the most to me. This novel literally just defines my love for reading. It defines what reading is to me. A solidly crafted novel with great characters, the perfect amount of pain, the most ridiculous enemies, Colonel Kurtz, the mad colonel, and his study, or like his sidekick, Owen, who turns on him. It's just, everything about this book I love. And it's just the book that I'm most thankful for. And I can't go into more detail without saying I'd be going on a 20-minute spiel about this book, which I actually do. If you guys want to see that video, check out Why I Love Dreamcatcher on my channel. I did it a while back. I'm pretty sure that video was like 15 minutes long. I went on a spiel about this book. But yeah, Dreamcatcher is there. It's the #1 spot. It's literally the book that I would save. I've said it before. If there was a fire in this house, this would be the book that I save. I'd save all three of these copies. I'd save this version before any of these 2 if these were gone, or if like I had to choose between a novel. If I had to choose a novel, if someone pointed a gun to my head, choose a novel that you want to keep for the rest of your life, you're not allowed to choose another one. I choose Dreamcatcher. And that's it. No one can change my opinion about this book. It's locked. So, I went on a huge spiel about Dreamcatcher and about Cruelty, but yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell icon if you're new. Leave a comment down below telling me what your 5 novels are that you're most thankful for, and I'll see you guys in the next one.